Hello, welcome to Algorithms. My name is Saurabh, and today we are going to talk about big data architectures. In this presentation, the focus is going to be batch processing, and then we are going to discuss about the tools as well, and specifically to Azure. And the next presentation, I'm going to cover AWS components as well. So when we talk about big data, it it actually involves different type of workloads, and when I say different types, there are mostly four types of workloads. One is batch processing of big data sources, the other one is real-time processing, and then interactive exploration of big data, and then predictive analytics and machine learning. Now, this slide showcases the common components of big data architecture, and it includes both batch processing and stream processing. Now, there are two different architectures associated with it. One is Lambda architecture and one is Kappa architecture. Lambda architecture has got so for instance, let me first explain you why we need what are the drawbacks of having a big data architecture with just batch processing, and why we needed Lambda architecture, and then why there was a need to have Kappa architecture. Okay, so first of all, as you know, batch processing is you have big sets of data. It takes long time to process it. Similarly, the same amount of delay is being introduced when you query that data. Now, for instance, if you have to do some real-time analysis, in that case, it is not possible to use that data in the real time because that data is not processed yet. So Lambda architecture addresses that challenge. So what it does is there are two different flows. One is a real-time flow. One is called as cold flow. So it's like called batch processing. So one is speed processing, one is or speed layer, and one is batch layer. So at the speed layer, data is analyzed in real time, and the layer is designed for low latency, but the accuracy is compromised depending upon what type of data you are processing. Now, at the batch layer, which is known as cold path, stores all of the incoming data in its raw form and performs batch processing on the data, and the result of this processing is stored as a batch view. Okay. Now, in the Kappa architecture, since there were two paths, one was speed layer, one was batch layer, and they were converging to analytics layer. Now, in the Kappa architecture, there was just one path of processing, so all data is processed at the speed layer, and then there is a long-term store where we store all the master data, and then it there is no convergence, but the speed layer processes the data, and then analytics client can uh, use it in order to analyze it. Okay, so let me go to the batch processing of Azure. Now in this one, you see, and I guess those who are watching this presentation must have a basic idea. That's my understanding about the different components, and that's one of the reason I did not explain the component and flow. I just explained the difference uh, between the architecture, batch processing, Lambda architecture, and then Kappa architecture. In case you have any specific questions or you want me to explain any further, please drop your comments. Okay, so now when it comes to data storage, so we looked at a flow uh, in the common components, that what are the different components. Now I map those components with the different services which are available. For instance, for the data storage, you can use blob storage, you can use data lake store, you can use SQL database, you can use Cosmos DB, depending upon the type of analysis you are doing, depending upon type of data sources you have. Maybe you have structured data sources, you can use SQL database, or maybe you have unstructured database, unstructured data plus semi-structured data plus structured data. You are doing all of that, plus it is coming from different departments and different systems. You might use data lake store or blob storage. And then for the batch processing, you have different tools like usql, hive, pig, spark. And from the analytical store perspective, once the data is in the comes in the staging area, then it is processed, and then for analysis purpose you can store that in the SQL data warehouse. You can use HBase, Hive, and then from the analytics and reporting purposes there are different tools. But since we are talking about the big data architecture, not the visualization, so I did not mention those tools here. From the orchestration perspective, Azure Data Factory and Uji is HD Insight, so you can use any of these tools. Now let me tell you some of the challenges. Okay, uh, in terms of batch processing. So the challenge is the what I have seen in most of the cases is a mix of encoding like UTF-16 and UTF-8, or files contain unexpected delimiters, space versus tab, or include unexpected characters. The other type of challenge that I have seen in some of the big data architectures or environments is, for instance, you are getting data from different locations and you have different folders. So for instance, you have a location folder, you have a year folder, you have month, week, and day, and so on and so forth. Now for instance, your ERP system could not send data to that respective folder on X day, but it is delayed. Now that is again because there is a hierarchy maintained, so there has to be some sort of logic implemented in terms of how that downstream processing is going to happen, and that logic has to be embedded in the downstream system so that they can identify those differences if there is a delay in terms of ingestion of file, or in terms of delay in terms of due to some other reason as well. Okay, now as I said, we discussed about data storage, batch processing, analytical data store, analysis and reporting, and orchestration. Now for the data storage, as I said, blob containers, data lake store. Let me explain the batch processing. So USQL is the query processing language used by Azure Data Lake Analytics. So it combines the declarative nature of SQL with the procedural extensibility of C#, I would say. And it also takes advantage of parallelism to enable efficient processing of data at massive scale. Now you can also use Hive. Hive is a SQL-like language that is supported in most Hadoop distributions, including HD Insight, and it can be used to process data from any HDFS compatible store, including Azure Blob or Azure Data Lake Store. Pig is declarative; it is not like SQL. So it's a big data processing language used in Hadoop distributions, including HD Insight. It is useful for processing data that is unstructured or semi-structured. Now, Spark engine supports batch processing programs written in different languages like Java, Scala, and Python. Spark also uses distributed architecture to process data in parallel across multiple worker nodes. Now, for analytical data store, you can use Spark SQL. Spark SQL is actually an API built on Spark that supports the creation of data frames and tables, and one can query using SQL syntax. Azure Synapse Analytics is a managed service on SQL Server database technologies and optimized to support large scale data warehousing workloads. HBase and Hive. So HBase, as you know, is a low latency NoSQL store that offers a high performance option for querying structured and semi-structured data. Hive in addition to being useful for batch processing, it offers a database architecture that is conceptually similar to that of typical RDBMS. Okay. For analytics and reporting, uh, you can use Power BI, you can use Excel, depending upon what is your requirement. Okay. Azure analysis services, those who are familiar with the Microsoft BI stack, they must be knowing about the Microsoft SQL Server analysis services. So here in the Azure analysis services, you can use OLAP processing, um, and then you can connect uh, uh, different clients, for instance Excel or Power BI as well. So Azure analysis services supports the creation of tabular models to meet this need. Okay. From the orchestration perspective, Azure Data Factory and Uzi and Scoop. So Azure Data Factory is used for design pipelines, and you define the sequence of activities scheduled for recurring temporal windows. So these activities can initiate data copy operations as well as Hive, Pig, or Spark jobs in on-demand HD Insight clusters. Okay. You can do some other stuff as well, mm, like use SQL jobs in Azure Data Lake Analytics and stored procedures in Azure Synapses or Azure SQL database. So there are different type of jobs. Means again, it's more of a, you define your pipeline, and you can include different components in the pipeline. Okay. Uji is a job automation engine for Apache Hadoop ecosystem, and you can use it to initiate data copy operations as well as Hive, Pig, MapReduce jobs to process the data. Okay. And the Scoop jobs are used to copy data between HDFS and SQL databases. I guess this is it from my side. If you have any questions, please drop comments, and please like the video. If there is any feedback, please drop your feedback in the comment section, and subscribe the video as well, because it takes hard work, it takes time to create these videos, to spread the knowledge, and to help people in the industry to train and to spread the word. Thank you very much. Have a great day.